Um,
All right. Thank you very much, Phil, for being here today. This is Luciana. I'm an culture coach, and I welcome you to this interview because your company, 1-800 Contacts, was selected one of the best places to work by Inc. Is that right?
that's correct. Yes, we're very
Congratulations.
excited about that. Thank you.
That's wonderful, and that's why I'm contacting you because I'm researching on what's working and what's not working with employees working remotely. A lot of companies were able to move to remote work, but not everyone is able to keep employees engaged and sustain the culture. So we'd like to hear more about what you're doing and what are your challenges too, because no one has everything solved. So, Phil, first tell me more about what you do in the company and how you felt when all this COVID started.
Yeah, sure. So, so my role is I'm the chief marketing officer. In my group is the marketing teams, the teams that run our storefronts, and I think very important to point out is all of our associates in our call centers. So our
Hmm.
customer service team is also part of my organization. So
Right.
you can
So you have
imagine
like
that
400 employees, is that right?
actually we have close to 1,000
Wow.
employees
Oh,
total. Yeah, yeah. So we have about call it around 550 or so associates who are in our customer service center, our customer support teams. And so, as you can imagine, when you suddenly, see the data and you start to realize that, okay, it's no longer safe for our people to be coming into the office. We need to figure out how to get everybody safe and at home. It's a pretty big effort to try to figure out.
right.
Thankfully, we were able to transition our entire company to working from home in under a week.
Wow.
And we're able to do that and not miss any of our service levels to our customers, which was important because as things have been developing, we're providing vision care for customers. If they can't get their product, if they can't get their contacts, many people can't see. In early days of COVID, we started hearing from some of our customers, particularly on the East Coast, who are frontline medical workers, who were saying, "Look, I have to get my contacts. I'm out of my contacts. I can't
Oh,
wear glasses because I have PPE on, and my doctor's office is closed. What can I do?" And we were really excited that we were able to rally as a company together to make sure that we were able to take care of these customers, and then really the rest of it's come from there. Um,
wonderful. So you saw a peak, you saw demands increasing during these times?
Yeah, we did. Early on, I mean, it really sort of tracked the way the rest of the country started to expand, right? We started to see things happening with our customers on the East Coast and the Northeast in particular, a little bit in the Northwest and in California. And then, as the rest of the company went, so did our business go. I think what's important to point out, though, is the number one thing that we've been focusing on, and this is what, in some respects, made transitioning everybody home somewhat, I won't say easy, but pretty straightforward for us, is this is a company that for 25 years was founded on the idea that if we take care of our associates, take care of our people, they will take care of our customers.
Right.
And in a time like this is when you really see how having that built into the DNA of the company really sort of paid off, which is everybody was able to rally very immediately around, hey, we have customers in need. We need to take care of them. What is it that we need to do to keep these people replenishing their contacts, make sure they're taken care of, make sure that with everything else going on, this is one thing they can take off their plate. We've got it. Go on. You've got enough other things to worry about. And so I think having that mission in everybody's belly really help people move beyond, okay, here's a hassle here's something I have to work around. It's okay. We're taking care of customers.
Right. So, managing customer service like you do, having such a great call center, that's very difficult. A lot of companies struggle with that, have a lot of turnover. So how do you manage turnover? How do you how did you make sure that well employees were important, were in order to be able to provide to your customers, and how you make sure that keeps being the same way while you work remotely, right?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we haven't. So first and foremost, we wanted to make sure that everybody was safe and healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't really thinking about selling contacts or anything like that. First mission is make sure our people are safe, which we were able to do quickly. We had a handful of agents already working from home. So some of our agents, we had probably about 280, 290 that were already working from home,
Oh wow.
that had been hot,
Every day or they
yes,
just
every day,
oh.
every day. And that really allows us to be flexible with people. Not everybody can work a traditional, 9 to 5 job. Some people
Mhm.
have, kids to take care of. Some people have other things going on in their life. So we always felt that, hey, we're going to allow people to work on terms that are flexible for them because, we don't really care where they're working necessarily as long as they're taking care of our customers. That still left about another 250 people to be able to transition home. And, this is where people had to get creative, get scrappy, and say, okay, what does it take to basically transition all these people, pack up their computers, um, figure out a way to do all this and still comply with social distancing? So, how do you actually have people drive up on an appointment schedule and get their computer? How do we make sure that when they get home, they don't have to be a technical expert? The thing will just work. And
Mhm.
so, our technology team, our IT teams did some pretty clever things behind the scenes, that we're all kind of laughing about to basically trick the systems into saying it's okay to disconnect them from the company and send them home. And so we were able to transition everybody in about a 1 week period, lost no productivity.
Mhm.
While we were doing this, our call volumes were starting to go higher and higher, in fact, hitting record levels.
Mhm.
Same things were happening in our distribution centers where, that's where we have to ultimately take the orders and get them sent out to customers. And that's where, again, where we were primarily focused on how do we make sure that we can meet this unprecedented demand while keeping our associates safe, right? Take care of customers, but we got to take care of our people first. And so early on, we decided that we were going to uh, change up the way that the shifts work. So instead of having everybody in a warehouse at the same time, we would actually break them up into little pods. They're separated by time. They have enough space to have social distancing in the warehouse. And that way we could still keep up with the orders. And then
Oh.
on top of that, we actually, a couple of days into this, we actually had a 5.7 Richter scale earthquake about 2 miles from our warehouse here in Salt Lake City.
Wow.
So everything was on the
Amazing.
ground, and it was funny. Everybody pitched in, from the executive team to people just volunteering, saying, "Hey, we don't want the folks who are working every day to have to deal with this." So we all went in overnight and restacked all the shelves, put everything back together, so the next morning people could come in and not have to worry about one more thing, right? So we're
Wow.
taking things off of our customers' minds, taking things as much as we can off of our associates' minds, and frankly, taking care of their minds. We've, as a company, we have three major initiatives that when we think about corporate involvement, corporate giving, that we focus on. One of them has been about mental health. Even before all of this,
Mhm.
the country was facing a mental health crisis. And we felt that this is something that's important for us, in terms of the role we play in the community, the role we play as an employer for our people, to make this a focus in the organization. And so, what that has allowed us to do is take that focus that we already had in place with company events where we bring in counselors, and we make it clear that people know that mental health is not something to be embarrassed about. It's not something to
Mhm.
be stigmatized. It's something that, if you need help, we want to help. And
Right.
so we've been able to pivot that during this time, and really, I'd say I spend quite a bit of my time these days just checking on the mental health of my people and
Mhm.
people across the company. Just make sure they're okay,
Right.
because these are unprecedented times. And even though people, a lot of folks are focusing on, okay, I'm just going to focus on the work and focus on customers. We're taking a concerted effort to make sure they focus on themselves, and to know that It's okay for this not to be okay.
Right. Yeah, that sounds so simple, but not many companies are working on that. And especially, I guess that if you have a customer service like the one you do, you have a lot of young employees, and maybe they are not very much experienced, so they suffer a lot with depression or with stress or anxiety when they're doing a call, right?
Well, actually, what's interesting, I agree. What's also interesting though is our customer service team actually spans multiple generations. We have everything from people who are
Wow.
working in our call centers while they put themselves through school to people who've retired and say, I just want to be at a place where I enjoy the people I'm around and enjoy talking to people on the phones and taking care of customers. And so it is fully, in some cases, we actually have multiple generations working within the company because we have that flexibility. If somebody just wants to work a few hours a week, that's fine. If they want
Oh.
to work extra hours, that's also fine.
How do you handle the differences with the generations? Because that's another challenge that a lot of companies deal with. How do we engage millennials, or how do we help or make the baby boomers work with the Gen Zs? It's not that easy.
It's interesting because I talk to every incoming class that we're hiring. By the way, since COVID-19 has started, we've hired 91 additional people,
Wow, how
including
you did that?
full remote hiring, full
Mm,
remote training. We
wow.
just graduated our first training class, all done remotely. And they spanned everything from millennials, Gen Z, all the way to baby boomers. I meet with every one of the classes. It's great to see because everybody comes with their own story and their own perspective,
Mm-hmm.
but everyone is coming into an environment where we have enough flexibility that if you're here because this is the starting point of something you want to build into a long-term career, whether it's here or somewhere else, that's fine. If you're here because, hey, I'm actually not trying to build a career, I'm just want to have a place where I can make a little bit of extra money or have something to do during the day, that's fine too. And we bring everybody in together. We intentionally mix the classes together.
Wow.
Um, but what is common with all these folks, depending, and yes, they come with different perspectives. What is sort of the common element here, and this is kind of the non-negotiable part when we're hiring people and letting them know if this is right for you, which is uh, we're a big-hearted company. We take care of our people because we want them to take care of customers. And if they can have that customer orientation
Mm-hmm.
and really understand that, right? Our founder had a statement still up in the wall in our grill. We have an on-site restaurant, and it says basically, paraphrasing, what we're selling is service. We just happen to deliver contact lenses. And so if people come into the organization understanding that that's what the mission is, our mission is customer service, that's something that can be common ground for everybody. And yes, the different cohorts, different generations may approach a job a little bit differently, but they're serving customers in their own way. By the way, we want them to personalize it to them. We don't script anything in our call centers. We
I
want
was gonna ask you
people
about that.
talking to people.
Mm,
And frankly, although we really train on how you use the systems. We don't do scripts. We empower every associate is empowered to take care of a customer. And so we actually have these moments that we call wow moments, where
mm-hmm.
an associate on the phone with a customer will hear something and hear part of their story and just say, you know what, I'm going to do something different. They don't have to ask for permission; they just do it. We had a customer. This is actually, I think, week before last. We had a customer. Long story. We couldn't get her contacts to her in time. That were going to be delivered a day late. We had an issue getting her prescription information verified. The reason that was important is because she had a doctor's appointment. It was non-elective, right? Because we're all in lockdown or in shelter in place. She had an important doctor's appointment, was not going to be able to drive to get there. So that associate, we can't, we don't have a time machine. We can't speed up something that's already next day shipped. But what that associate did on her own, she just said, you know what, I'm going to pay for your Uber ride to the doctor and back.
Oh,
She didn't have
wow.
to ask for permission. She just basically sent the gift card to the customer and said, take the Uber, this is on us. And, be safe, be healthy. And these are things that happen all the time. And something that culturally we kind of codify that with what we call a wall of wow, where we have these stories that customers write
How do
into
you
us. They
call
write
it?
in the wall of wow,
Oh,
where we put, it's basically customers are writing to us, emailing to us every day, unprompted, and saying, hey, I just want to call out something that one of your employees did. By the way, sometimes we don't even know they did it because they're
right.
empowered to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it ranges from, at the end of a call, anything else I can do for you? Well, yeah, I'd love a Harley Davidson t-shirt. Somebody sends that, to some really touching stories where we had a family a couple of months ago who we found out, unfortunately, the customer died. We didn't know. So we had
Oh,
called the house and found out that the family had actually had a non-COVID related, had a couple of losses in the family. And so these two associates, frontline associates on the phone, got together and bought a star. You can name stars, and name the star after the family, and sent that to them saying, look, this is, you can't make up for the loss, but
wow.
hopefully when you look in the sky, you'll see something to remind you.
Something nice. Wow. So you have like company values or rules, something that guides the culture that you have and that you know that they keep doing that remotely too?
Yes, yes, and again, we never use the values as kind of a measuring stick. We use it as something to, first and foremost, make sure we're hiring the right kind of people,
Mm-hmm.
people who fit the values. We do have values that we have an awards program that if somebody wants to recognize somebody, we use those, and those principles are we make her day. If
Mm-hmm.
you see somebody who's made someone else's day, we win as a team. Living for the impossible, somebody really went above and beyond, usually for a customer, but sometimes for an associate. And then how we champion each other and take care of each other, that sort of
Mm-hmm.
peer-to-peer taking care of one another. Those are the ones that we've created recognition programs around it. But this principle around being big-hearted, about really thinking about people, that's ultimately what we is the guidepost that we use. And there's other things, programs that we put in place, part of us taking care of our people. I mean, we've always focused on having what we would want to be considered the best in class amenities for our associates, just to make it a great place to work. And that's been an interesting, in some respects, fun challenge as people have transitioned home. Like, we have an on-site grill. It's not just any grill. I mean, our chef, we hired him from a Michelin-starred restaurant.
Wow.
It's cooked to order steaks. It's oysters on the half shell. It's that type
Can
of,
I
of
visit?
environment. Well, people love to come, and I invite you when this is all over, because Tom, our head chef, is just anxious to start doing more things like sirdahi and things like that. But it's a subsidized grill. We also have a subsidized or an on-site gym in-house. It's our employees. Our grill is not outsourced to some food service company. It's our people. And so as we've thought about what does it mean when you're in a remote environment to have the best employee experience possible, that's when we've had to start getting clever. So
Right.
for example, one of the first things we did is, look, we don't have this subsidized great food for you, but we distributed to all of our associates gift cards for them to use in local restaurants in the community, which is, hey, our grill's not open. There are a lot of local businesses that are suffering right now. Local restaurants, use this money that we would have spent anyway. Use that to try to keep a local mom and pop business in business.
Right.
Um,
And it makes it easy for them not to cook, right?
well, exactly. It's one more thing to make it easier. And we have other things. Our chef has been working overtime to think about what he can do to surprise our employees who generally live in the same, long Salt Lake Valley area. And we've also had our folks who are running our on-site gym. They've started doing online classes so people can still work out. We're doing regular events. Even in the cafeteria, we had this big, tall table right in front of where you pick up your food, and tables all around. That's generally where people would stand and just kind of run into each other and have lunch. Every Tuesday, we do a virtual lunch where we all just kind of dial into a
Oh,
video meeting have lunch, no agenda. We're all just talking. Our CEO does coffee every Thursday, where everyone can just dial in and just there's no agenda. It says, hey, just a chance for people to talk, to keep that person to person connection going while we can.
Right.
And it's another for the management in the company. It's another chance for us to just make sure we're connecting with more people and we can understand who may need more help from us, more focus from us from a mental health perspective than others. And then what can we do in those cases to help that person out?
Right. So going back to what you're talking about, mental health. So um, were you able to train the leaders, or maybe I don't know if you have self-organized teams or you have leaders, but were you able to coach or train someone within the team to help everyone to keep on supporting them, or were they already trained on this? How did you help on
Well,
this?
I mean, I'm not going to pretend that we can be trained to be mental health experts. That's
Hmm.
not
Right.
that's not the intent. That would probably do more damage than good. But what we are focusing a lot on is we're probably communicating 2 to 3 times more than we normally would.
Hmm.
We're reminding people every time I'm meeting with my management team, I'm reminding them, hey, pay attention to your people. I put didn't require a rule change or anything early on in this. I recognize that particularly people in my organization were just heads down, focusing on taking care of customers, focusing on making sure that the business was running properly. Um, Probably 2 3 weeks into it, I realized, okay, folks are working extraordinarily long hours. This can't be the new normal. And so that's when we started to say, okay, in some respects, I started forcing people on my team to take a day off. Just say, hey, you're going to take a day off. You can pick the day, but if you don't pick a day, I'm going to pick the day. And then I also, to show them I was serious, I said, okay, and Monday I'm taking off. I'm not doing any email. You guys need to do this too. So it starts with impromptu things like this. It leads to other things. Now that this is kind of the new normal and it's not new anymore, this is, I think, the most critical time for us.
Hmm.
This is where we need to say, look, this is not a short-term thing. How do we make sure that this is something that is sustainable long-term, that we
Exactly.
continue to have the type of culture that we think is unique and makes us us, where it's a mix of fun and camaraderie, even if we can't connect physically, where we can help one another, where we start to point out, gee, in particular, you may have some young people who are living by themselves in an apartment, maybe downtown where it's cool, except for you can't go out anywhere. So after a while, it's like, okay, that person's not had any human contact for how many weeks? What can we do to help them out? And
Right.
we're in some cases can be something as simple as saying, right now, our office people are not generally working in the office, but in some cases, you may have a small team where there may be someone on that team who just needs some physical contact. Let's bring in those 4 or 5 people. Hey, we're going to work from the office this morning. We're
With
going to
social distance, but
we're going to keep social
right.
distancing. We are,
Okay, good.
um,
Wow.
but at least that gives that person a chance to just have some physical interaction.
Sure.
We had another team that decided that they were all going to meet in a park, so they could all be at different parts of the park, but they could all yell at each other and wave. And so it's
Different
the
ways of interacting, right?
it's different ways. And we actually have a number of people who are in senior roles in the company who started their first job was taking care of customers on the phone. And so they've had this they've had this taught to them at this point for years and years. So for some folks, it just comes natural to think of, okay, let me just pay attention to everybody around me and make sure that folks are taken care of.
So are you increasing also one-on-one sessions to coach people?
Yeah, I wouldn't say increasing. I think we
Hmm.
did a good job as a company of making sure that managers knew that part of the responsibility of being a manager is you need to actually be talking to your people and talking to them regularly. And it's not all about just giving feedback. It's about having a conversation. So
Hmm.
um, I would say that I'm still maintaining the one-on-ones. I mean, honestly, a lot of the things that we're doing now are things that I think thankfully we were doing before.
Right.
We were mentoring before. Still mentoring now. We were training before. We're training now. We were promoting people before. We're still promoting now. There are more tools, Yammer and Slack and Zoom and Teams and all these things. Yeah, we're using all of those, but basically they're just those are tools that are helping to do remotely what we were already doing for the most part in person.
And what about innovation? Does your company work on that, or is
Yeah.
or not? And how are you promoting that remotely?
Well, so I mentioned before, one of the company values is live for the impossible, which is take a problem
Right.
that everyone says is impossible and figure out how to solve it. Our company was founded on that notion because at the time when we first started selling contacts, you couldn't sell them online. It was actually illegal. And yet that made no sense because that's not good for customers. And so that notion of living for the impossible has always been part of how the company operated. Every quarter we would actually have formal events where, think of it like a hackathon, where people with any idea can come in and we can dedicate a couple of days of working on an idea. They present the idea at the beginning and then they recruit people to say, hey, here's my idea.
I saw that on LinkedIn, and I was going to ask you. Thank you for bringing that up.
Sure. Well, if you saw it on LinkedIn recently,
Yeah.
we just did our first
Like 2
virtual
weeks
live.
ago, I think, or yeah.
First virtual Live for the Impossible. I was one of the judges,
Wow.
and it was great. One of the ideas that won an award was creating a virtual onboarding, because a big part of creating corporate culture is the onboarding experience. So how do we
Right.
make that virtual? Because we have already hired almost 100 people. We're going to continue to hire.
Is it long, the onboarding process in your company? Because usually companies that want to keep the culture keep it like a month long or something like that. So
Yeah, I
doing it
mean, it's
remotely.
off and on working, depending on if you're coming in management versus if you're coming in the customer care center. In the customer care center, it's built into the training process. So I'd say probably half of it is as much culture and history as it is how do you take care of a customer.
Right.
For management who come in, it's a couple of days that we space out in half-day increments. And so doing that virtually and figuring out, a big part of it is having management, like people like me, come in and talk to new hires. And so figuring out how to do all that is a challenge. And thankfully that was something that in a 2-day period, a couple of people from IT, a couple of people from HR figured it out.
Wow.
And there were some other really good, some pretty technical solutions that people knocked out by working late, overnight, trying to figure out how to code a new experience for our customers. And so we're continuing that innovation approach remotely.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, is there anything else, Phil, that you would like to recommend or to suggest to other companies that are dealing with this and that maybe have to continue working remotely for some time?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot about this, and I don't want to be presumptuous and say, and in fact, I know, I've been in different types of company cultures. What works for us may not work for another company, but I think that some of the principles of this is not a short-term thing that we're going to get through. This is something that's going to be somewhat protracted, maybe in waves, maybe not. I think similar to a lot of the articles that are out there. In fact, I think you actually had an article that talked about how do you build. A lot of people are focusing on successful personal habits right now, right? This is a time where I'm going to be introspective and say, what are the things I want to do differently about myself going forward?
Right.
I think that same approach of what are the successful corporate habits? What are the things that if you're going to reinvent something about your company to make it better going forward, this is the time to do it. And you need to think of it just like on a personal side. It needs to be something I think that's realistic, that's grounded in who you are. I think for some companies, if they were to say, well, we're just going to be just like 1-800-CONTACTS, that's probably not relevant. It probably doesn't apply. But you can say, in terms of what's relevant to my company culture, to your own company culture, what are the things that we recognize that are good things we want to amplify? What are things that we maybe wanted to work on before. And this is the time to actually put effort behind it and kind of codify that in the way the company is going to operate going forward. And
Right.
so this is the time. This is the time, I think, for companies to, we're doing it. I think this is the time for companies to figure out what are those new company norms, company habits, if you want to think of it that way, that they want to focus on going forward.
Right. Yes, I agree. It happens like when you have a crisis, whatever you're doing right or wrong, it amplifies, right? So apparently, all the things that you were doing right before, the flexibility now is like a treasure, and a lot of companies weren't dealing. They didn't want to deal with that. Now we want to see everyone, want to control everyone, and now they have to deal with having everyone outside, and it's a big change. So. eh,
Yeah,
I
another
totally
thing
agree.
another thing I'd add to it is,
Hmm.
I'd say when we're thinking about, this is how we're approaching it, which is when we're thinking about the things that we want to work on, anchoring it in customers. Because ultimately that's what we're all here to do, right? Some people may say businesses are in business to make money. I mean, they're really in business to serve customers. And so in our case, starting with that customer experience and say, these are the things we're going to anchor any changes we have going forward. That's a little bit of the, that's a little bit of the guidepost that we're using, because it's so important to us.
Wonderful. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview. Thank you very much, Phil, and hope we stay in contact. And well, wish you a lot of success with these changes and with the things that you did right, and that your company continue thriving through time.
Thanks very much.
Thank
Thanks
you
very
very
much.
much. Bye
All
bye.
right, take care. Bye
You
bye.
too.